A tiny slice of lung tissue floats in warm broth. The temperature is locked at 98.6 degrees. There is no friction, no stress, and no radiation. It is shielded from the outside world. You assume a machine breaks down because of external damage. You think wear and tear is a strict physical law. Remove the harsh environment, and the machine runs forever. That is how everything in our physical reality works. A pristine engine stored in a vacuum will never rust, except the biological machinery in that flawless dish stops anyway. In 1961, a biologist named Leonard Hayflick worked at the Wistar Institute. He set up an experiment so simple that senior scientists laughed at him. He placed normal human cells in a nutrient bath and just let them divide. He watched them double daily. 1 became 2, 2 became 4, rapidly filling the glass. When it got too crowded, he carefully split them into new containers. There was no disease in the room. There was no lack of basic food. By all the laws of biology known at the time, these cells should have kept multiplying endlessly. But around the 50th division, they slowed down. They looked structurally tired. And then, as if responding to an invisible signal, every single cell stopped dividing. They did not die of starvation. They did not die of some hidden infection. They simply received a chemical command to shut down the assembly line. The implication rewrote human biology. The breakdown of your body is not caused by the friction of living. It is a scheduled demolition. The timer is built directly into the fuse. Every time your cells replicate, a tiny physical structure at the end of your DNA gets shorter. Think of it like the plastic tip on a shoelace. When the tip finally frays away, the cell reads a stop sign. We call these structures telomeres. They are a biological countdown clock. They tick away inside almost every piece of tissue you currently own. Your skin thins out. Your bones turn brittle over time. Your hair slowly loses its dark color. None of this is accidental damage. It is your own genetic code systematically turning off the lights, which means decay is not a law of physics. It is a piece of written software. And written software can be hacked. You just need the right biological keystrokes. In 2006, a researcher named Shinya Yamanaka at Kyoto University decided to test that exact vulnerability. He took mature adult skin cells that were heavily aged. Their internal countdown clocks were nearly empty. He introduced just 4 specific proteins into those old cells. He did not change their physical environment or surgically repair their worn structures. He simply slipped a new set of instructions through the cell membrane. The physical signs of cellular decay vanished. The biological clocks forcefully wound themselves backward. Those exhausted skin cells reverted to a pristine embryonic state. They were fundamentally young again. They had the exact same biological material, but they operated at a different biological age. The success of that test is what makes this story so dark. If eternal youth is mechanically possible, why do we not have it natively? If biology knows how to keep a cell pristine, why does it actively choose to discard you? The answer lies in what happens when the shutdown mechanism breaks. In 1951, a doctor named George Guy at Johns Hopkins University received a routine tissue sample. He placed it in a rotating glass test tube. He expected it to hit the division limit and stop. It never stopped. Those specific cells ignored the internal countdown clock. They divided yesterday, they divided today, and they will divide tomorrow. Since that afternoon, laboratories around the world have grown an estimated 50 million metric tons of this exact tissue. If you piled it all together, it would weigh more than 100 Empire State Buildings. The original patient has been dead for decades. The tissue itself is biologically immortal. It will never die of old age. We call it cancer. Your body enforces the countdown clock specifically to stop rogue cells from consuming you alive. You are forced to age. That is the heavy price you pay to avoid dissolving into infinite tumors. Evolution made a cold calculation. A biological machine that constantly replaces its parts will eventually make a copying error. That tiny error will multiply unconditionally. So evolution installed a firm kill switch. You are allowed to live long enough to pass on your genes. After that, your survival becomes a massive liability. The genetic lottery stops caring about you roughly around your 30th birthday. Once the next generation is successfully born, the mission is over. Any resources you consume after that point are essentially stolen from them. But that is only the baseline cruelty of the design. What if we could prove the body actually has the excess resources to maintain itself indefinitely? What if the body is just choosing not to spend those resources on you? A quiet experiment from the 30s gives us the answer. In 1935, a nutritionist named Clive McKay at Cornell University ran a trial that defied all basic logic. He took a large group of young white rats and severely cut their daily food intake. He kept them hungry. He gave them all the necessary vitamins and minerals, but barely any calories. They were kept constantly on the very brink of starvation. It was a miserable existence. By all normal medical logic, this intense physical stress should have destroyed their bodies. Prolonged deprivation is supposed to rapidly accelerate biological decay. You expect a starving machine to break down first. Instead, the starving rats lived 30% longer than the well-fed ones, on a human timeline. That is the exact equivalent of surviving an extra 2.5 decades. They stubbornly refused to die on schedule. They stayed physically energetic, their fur stayed thick and white, their internal organs stubbornly refused to show their age. When food is abundant, the biological system pours all its energy into rapid growth and immediate reproduction. It treats the physical body as a strictly disposable vehicle. You drive it hard, crash it, and replace it. But when heavy starvation hits, reproduction becomes physically impossible. The biological software suddenly panics. It realizes the current vehicle has to survive until the environmental conditions improve, so it stops ignoring the routine maintenance. It activates deep genetic repair mechanisms. It aggressively clears out the cellular trash. Your body always had the molecular tools to keep you pristine. It just categorically refuses to deploy them while you are comfortable and fed. So that settles the debate, right? We just need to trick the body into starvation mode, or we rewrite the 4 genes to defeat the countdown clock. Many modern researchers believe exactly that. They view aging as a standard curable disease. They see a mechanical failure we are finally learning to repair. They argue that evolution simply gave us a faulty engine. It works flawlessly for the first few decades, then gradually loses steam. If we can just replace the oil and tighten the belts, the car will drive forever. The logic sounds solid. We are slowly mapping every single biological pathway. We have the sheer computing power to model the complex proteins. Look, it is possible that science will conquer the isolated cell. Yamanaka proved the clock goes backward. McKay proved the maintenance crew is still inside the building. The real problem is who we are actually fighting. In 2005, a researcher named Thomas Rando at Stanford University performed a surgical procedure that sounds fictional. He surgically connected the bloodstreams of 2 live mice. They were forced to share a single circulatory system. One mouse was very young, the other was very old and frail. The young heart pumped fresh blood straight into the failing tissues of the older partner. Within just a few weeks, the old mouse began to physically heal like a young one. Its damaged liver rapidly repaired itself. Its aging muscle tissue regenerated from scratch. The stem cells in the old mouse were not broken. They were perfectly intact and capable. They had simply gone to sleep to conserve energy. The young blood carried loud chemical signals that immediately woke them up. The biological mechanism of youth was still sitting there in the dark. It was just waiting for an order that no longer comes. We are not just fighting a single broken clock. We are fighting an integrated network that actively coordinates our decline. Every single tissue in your body relies on a vast web of chemical signals. When you try to forcibly extend the lifespan of one part, you risk collapsing the rest of the intricate network. You wake up the stem cells, and you accidentally invite the cancer. You starve the body for longevity, and you destroy your bone density. It is a closed system. Pulling one lever always drops a heavy weight somewhere else. The house always wins. You spend billions of dollars every single year on premium face creams, complex supplements, and strict geometric diets. You stare silently in the mirror and quietly blame yourself for every new line. You think you simply did not sleep enough last year. You think you ate the wrong processed foods. You treat your predictably decaying body like a massive personal moral failure, but your diet was never the central problem. Your daily habits did not cause this structural collapse. You are taking the heavy blame for a war you never started. You are fighting a flawless line of biological code written and repeatedly tested over 3 billion years. It is a system meticulously designed to extract your reproductive value and discard the shell. The machine is not breaking down under the harsh weather. The machine is working with ruthless perfection. It just does not work for you.